Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports. Coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. You know we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful January 31st, 2019. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, down here in the wonderful city of Atlanta, where it started to warm up finally. It was freezing for the past couple of days down here.
Oh, yeah.
But everybody's getting over it, and you think about it, after today, Charlton, no more press conference, no more media access to the teams and all. So we're less than 72 hours away from the big game on Sunday, Charlton. But even more important than that, today is the 100th birthday of the late Jackie Robinson, the man who integrated baseball, Charlton, who created inroads for so many African-American athletes and coaches in America the way it stands today, Charlton. Without his sacrifice and what he had to deal with in those years of segregation and racism in America, Charlton, think about the plight of the African-American athlete and coaches today.
Yeah.
It most likely would not be where it is.
Well, that's amazing. Happy birthday, Jackie Robinson, and all the people who benefited from Jackie taking so much punishment and pain that was unnecessary, but he did it anyway for the betterment of mankind. I want to say today's segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a host of Cadillac cars. I know today is Super Bowl is right there. It's like that cake that's in the oven. You know it's going to be ready soon, but you can't eat it now, Big C. Some good old boys put their finger in it anyway and get burned. But I'm telling you, there's something about the build-up to this thing called the Super Bowl that we all love so much, and we all are looking forward to it. But before we even get into that, I think you look at basketball saying, well, we need some more attention. Everybody thinks Golden State is running away with everything, and it looks like they are. But there's always a chance for the other leagues to step up and do something just to get some attention. We were just talking just yesterday. Who would want to play for the New York Knicks, especially after what Dolan did to the great Charles Oakley, having him taken out by some security guard after he paid for his own ticket? But they got a couple of good old boys to go sign with them anyway, because you don't have a choice where you go where your team trades you. Just give me your thoughts on the happening for the NBA. The New York Knicks, they agreed to trade All-Star forward Kristaps Porzingis. He's not really, he's an All-Star player, but he's not a household name. And then Courtney Lee, Tim Hardaway Jr. to the Dallas Mavericks in return for Wesley Matthews, Dennis Smith Jr., and DeAndre Jordan, who's one of the most imposing defensive players, but can't seem to find a home. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, Kristaps Porzingis went into Knicks management. He hasn't played in about a year, Charlton, since suffering an MCL tear in his knee. And he walked in and he said, the direction that the team was going, he no longer wanted to be a part of that charade, Charlton.
Yeah.
The New York Knicks have won an NBA low of 10 games this season, Charlton. So they've been tanking, calling themselves that they can get a #1 draft pick overall, that maybe it will turn around the fortunes of the franchise, Charlton.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in today's NBA with the super teams that we have. But this trade being facilitated by Porzingis with the Dallas Mavericks, Charlton. Now, you think about it. Porzingis is now going to be teamed up with Luka Doncic, who was the 3rd overall pick in the most recent NBA draft, Charlton, and most likely will be NBA Rookie of the Year. A 19-year-old European who has stepped into the NBA, Charlton, and hasn't been overwhelmed by the NBA players. So this could be the best move for the Dallas Mavericks. It was only a decade ago, Charlton, that they won an NBA title. So not that far removed. Porzingis will come in and take over the role of Dirk Nowitzki most likely next year, Charlton, with this team. But with the trade of Hardaway, you move $74 million off the books in New York, so they're opening up a lot of salary cap space. And I don't know why all the preponderance in the NBA, the media and stuff, keep talking about, well, you can pay max contracts to players. Players don't care about max contracts in the NBA, Charlton. They care about winning. It's overrated. There's not a broke player in the NBA. There's not a player that's not making $1 million in the NBA, Charlton. So when they talk about max contracts and superstar players, Charlton, the guys are already making between $125 and $150 million on their current contract. So they're not going to go broke. Their whole status among professional athletes now, Charlton, is the ability to win a ring.
Yeah.
So when all these people in the NBA talking about, well, the guys no longer want to be with an organization, that's because the organization is not trying to win, Charlton.
Yeah.
So superstars want to be in a place where they can win.
That's a good point. Now, we talked about L.A., and we were talking about, when you think about who is the guy that you can put on the mantle in front of Staples Center and say, this is the home of the L.A. Lakers, the history. Who would represent who would be the vanguard for the Lakers? I would say Kareem. Outside of Kareem, I know you say Jerry West, but I think of Kareem and maybe even Magic Johnson, especially for the younger people. And we talked about who would be there for Boston. I would say Larry Bird. You said no, it would be Bill Russell. But I think Larry Bird's more beloved in Boston than Bill Russell, even though he has a lot more championships. Who would be the vanguard in the mantle you would put walking into Madison Square Garden as a Knick that would say, come here and help build on this legacy? I won't say Patrick Ewing. Could it be Willis Reed? I want to get your thoughts on why go to New York outside of it being the Big Apple. Basically, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton has always been Clyde Frazier, the face of that franchise. He was there with the 2 championships they had in the late 60s and early 70s.
Yeah.
He's also been a lifetime broadcaster since his retirement with the New York Knicks. So he's represented what that franchise has been, Charlton, over the decades.
Yeah.
But when you look at this team, Charlton, they have struggled since that Knicks championship team of 71.
Yeah.
And they just have not been able to put it together. They had a great run under Pat Riley with Patrick Ewing. They reached the finals, I believe, in 95, which was the last time they really saw some promise in that franchise, Charlton.
Yeah.
And they've had some tough years because the NBA is not always attracted to the big city.
Yeah.
The NBA, the attraction of the NBA is about winning. You don't need the bright lights.
No.
Because the bank is already lit up when you walk in there. With
it's
your
already
money.
lighted up for Christmas.
So that's the bright lights that the players look for. And when you got some bling on your finger, Charlton, the lights are shining all the time.
Yeah.
So New York hasn't been that attraction, and especially since Dolan has owned the team, Charlton.
Yeah.
Everybody is saying, this is not the place I want to be. You haven't seen a big free agency signing in New York, Charlton, in well over a decade. And you think about this is the largest media market in America.
Yeah.
And you cannot attract a big-name free agent player, Charlton, really in any sport right now.
Yeah, I agree. And plus, it kind of smells walking into the Madison Square Garden. It has a stench. Maybe that's a lot of New York, the subways, you get on some of the elevators, you think, who in the world? Did they have some leftover fish or something? But they could do a lot to clean it up. But let me get your thoughts on this, too. Have the Knicks really improved anything, getting guys that even when they were with the Dallas Mavericks really didn't put the Mavericks over the top? I think DeAndre Jordan was a great defensive player, but he's kind of a liability at the free throw line. So he doesn't really add anything to them. And if they want to get the best player in college basketball, I think they're looking for the kid out of Duke. Why would he want to go there? And I know people might say this doesn't matter what I'm going to say. When you see, we were just saying, who's the prodigal son of New York? Who's the prodigal son of the Lakers in Boston? If you saw what they did to Oakley, he should be in their circle of fame. That's how you get treated there. As a conscientious person, and you have a choice to do what John Elway did when he was coming out of Stanford. I don't want to play for that organization. Why would you want to go there if you're the kid out of Duke? Williams, Bixby, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they picked up Dennis Smith Jr., a guard that they wanted to draft last year out of North Carolina State, who was an impactful player as a rookie in the NBA. Zion Williams is just like any other kid coming out of college, Charlton, really doesn't have a say-so about where they're going to go once they enter into the draft. The draft is a free agency pick for the teams, Charlton. We select the players that we want. As a player now coming out of college, Charlton, you have no leverage any longer. I mean, the moves that Elway and Manning pulled, those were white players saying that they didn't want to play in a certain city, so they were accommodated by the league. So you're not going to get that with an African-American player saying, I don't want to play there. And you saw what happened with Anthony Davis. He's a veteran player. He's spent 6 years now, Charlton, in New Orleans. They have not won a playoff series since he's been there. So why would he want to sign another contract extension in that city? He's voiced that I don't want to be in this market because you're not doing enough as a franchise to win. Just like with New York. Porzingis walked in and said, you're not doing anything as a franchise to win. Matter of fact, you're tanking. You're getting worse. I don't want to be involved in that situation of rebuilding. I want to go to a franchise where they have a future projected for themselves, not to see how many games they can lose.
Yeah, that's interesting, Big C. And I just want to get one more piggyback on what you said about players not having this say-so over where they go. Didn't we just hear the last week that Davis, was he fined the $50,000 for the talk about wanting to be traded out in the open? And I know people say the owners control everything, and they set the rules. They do the bylaws. But it's ironic that you're saying that players have no say-so in where they get drafted to, but the owners can, on the drop of a dime, make a phone call and trade players. So even with today's advancements in social justice and people having the idea that they have a players union that can look out for them, why do we still have such a weak stance on these players unions where they can't even have this freedom of speech, but they can be traded next day? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you think about professional leagues in America and really around the world, they are at-will work organizations.
Yeah.
They're not forced to employ you. That's the thing about it.
Yeah.
They have the same rights as any other employee around America, Charlton. They just happen to make millions of dollars doing it.
Yeah.
But when an employer no longer deems you, as part of their organization,
yeah,
that you're a viable asset any longer, Charlton, in mainstream society, you just get fired. You get terminated.
Yeah.
In professional sports, Charlton, it can happen also, but they also have the ability to move you to another entity so that you can still maintain that income that you have.
Yeah.
So that is a plus minus that professional athletes have. But it's always been that owners have the ultimate power, Charlton. Players can't trade an owner.
No.
Owners can trade players. Owners have given you the opportunity to make this nice living, economically.
Yeah.
They provided you with that. And so when they say that this relationship is not going to work any longer, Charlton, it's always been noted in professional athletes that players get traded.
Yeah.
You are the property, the commodity of that organization, Charlton,
yeah,
until they deem you no longer necessitated.
Well, that's a very interesting point, and that a lot of times people they just got to know that, because you just brought that to my attention. It's like we all want to be in good hands. Like they have some commercials, you're in good hands with blank company, and a lot of people.
Well, Charlton, you let something happen to you with an insurance company. Are you in good hands?
Oh, yeah, good point.
You think about that.
Yeah, you're right.
When we talk about professional athletes not having the ability to say so, anybody who's ever had a big claim with their insurance company, within a week that the insurance company has dropped you, they find you as a liability. So when you think about professional athletes being disgruntled, not wanting to be with an organization, think about when you put in a claim against an insurance carrier that you haven't had a claim for 10 years with. All of a sudden they deem you as a liability and they drop your policy. And you have to go out and hunt someplace else. So when you think about what professional athletes have to go through, think about what the layman person has to go through when they bought insurance, just like an athlete signing a contract. That's insurance on your income. You sign a contract with an insurance carrier. They decided they no longer want you. What recourse do you have?
That's a very good point. And if they don't drop you, they make it so high that you drop yourself from the policy. That's very well known, that they're there to take money in. Yeah, they pay out, but sometimes they say bye with the payout too. So I just wish everybody the best, especially DeAndre Jordan. I think he's a good character person. We'll love to see him land with an organization that's really going somewhere. And speaking of organizations, and speaking of players and teams and coaches having no say-so, on the college level, University of Missouri, they received a bowl ban in 2019 from the football team for academic violations by 12 players, and they're placed on 3 years probation. The players who had nothing to do with it, they're also punished. They're going down with the ship. That doesn't make any sense. Identify the people who did the problem and let them pay the punishment. That's analogous to being in a car where somebody's speeding. If the driver's speeding 90 miles per hour in a 55 mile per hour zone, everybody shouldn't get a ticket that's riding along. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they did identify the 12 players. That's the reason why they were able to come up with that number of a dozen. So those players were identified. And so those players should be banned from playing, Charlton, for that 3 years. Not the players, the rest of the players that are in the teams. And I think that the NCAA is overreaching many times when they punish universities, because you know the exact individuals that's always involved in any impropriety that occurs at a university.
Yeah.
And so not only should those 12 players, Charlton, be sanctioned, that coach should be sanctioned
Yeah.
for that time. He should not be allowed to coach for that 3 years. He should be on a 3-year NCAA suspension, Charlton, and let the players that remain on the roster
Yeah.
be eligible, if they are bowl eligible, to play in a bowl game next year, Charlton, and not be on an NCAA 3-year suspension. That's what's wrong with the NCAA, is that it's overreaching, Charlton.
Yeah.
You go out and you reach kids. You think about kids that just signed with the University of Missouri, Charlton,
Yeah.
coming out of high school. What did they have to do with that incident that
Nothing.
occurred? There was an impropriety academically
Nothing.
at the University of Missouri. Not only that, the quarterback who started at Clemson last year, Charlton, the first 4 games, Kelly Bryant,
Yeah.
he had just transferred to Missouri.
Yeah.
What did he have to do with the NCAA academic improprieties that occurred at the University of Missouri? So they're too overreaching far as punishment.
Yeah.
And I guess they said, well, if we get everybody, then nobody will cheat. No, Charlton, just get
Yeah.
the ones who cheat. The
Yeah.
others will know not to cheat just off of that alone.
Yeah, and I always look at it this way. Whoever in the NCAA that levies out that punishment, let's look into their background and see if they've been caught with their hand in the cookie jar. I've always wondered that about judges that adjudicate law. Are they really clean? Especially when you look at what POTUS, how he handles people in the power. Let's look at, when you think about coaches, and I love you brought that up, when they go on the recruiting trips and they're going into a family's home and they're telling that family how we're going to take care of your child as if they're our own. We think about the salaries. They can go from one school to another. The kids are punished, especially if they stay. If you look at, say, the top 9 salaries for coaches in the NCAA, which is that league for free labor, you look at Herman out of Texas, he makes $5.5 million. Dan Mullen, Florida, he makes $6 million a year. Nothing's wrong with that if they're paying you. Dabu Swinney, national championship coach, $6.5 million a year. And he could have taken some of that money and volunteered for the state instead of let POTUS feed his boys at the White House some hamburgers. Kirby Smart for Georgia, $6.6 million. Gus Malzahn, Auburn, $6.7 million a year for Malzahn. Jimbo Fisher, $7.5. Jim Harbaugh, $7.5. Urban Meyer, who stepped away, I think maybe a year. He'll come back somehow, some way. $7.6 million. Then Nick Saban, $8.3 million for being blown out in the national championship game. But if any one of their players screw up, the school's in trouble. They're not. Big. So your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at those players, those coaches, rather, 5 of those coaches that you named are in one conference, the SEC. 5 of them.
Yeah.
The SEC has 5 of the 9 highest paid coaches in college football. That lets you know that football is serious in the South.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about why you don't see that competitiveness on the West Coast like you see down in the South, Charlton, that's the reason why. The dollars are put on the table. But when those 9 coaches you just named off, Charlton, only 3 of them won their conference.
Yeah.
With all of that money on the table, Charlton, only 3 of those coaches won their conference. So it's very competitive down through those southern states, Charlton.
Yeah.
And, you know, Urban Meyer is not going to be in the mix next year. He's going to be the assistant athletic director at Ohio State.
Yeah. Yeah.
But money is huge in college football. So you see why these guys are not on the bandwagon running to the NFL, because they are the complete CEOs of their universities, Charles.
Yeah, they're making more money than the players or the coaches in the NFL. Also, ironically, Eddie Robinson, Grambling coach, sent more players onto the NFL than any coach. Now, I know that's a long time, that's a long, long list of success. But even when you look at these top 9 coaches, and they know it's true, when they go out to recruit, most of their teams are filled with African-American athletes. I would say as much as 75% have black players. But none of these coaches in these top 9 are men of color. Why is it? And we already know the answer, but sometimes they say, you know, you learn by repetition. And maybe through repetition, they'll open up more opportunities for people. If the top 9 paid coaches in college football with $100 million athletic programs for the football programs alone, they're all white. Why don't they just start recruiting all white kids? Why is it that they'll recruit the black kid to help them make, $9 million, $8 million, $7 million, $5 million, but once those playing days are over, they're not even giving those kids a chance to go into an apprentice program to become an offensive coordinator or a head coach. That seems like they have a stronger grip on the free labor than a lot of corporations like Trump's golf course down south. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that's truly the inroads to becoming a head coach is being a coordinator, even being a grad assistant at some of these schools, Charlton. And you would think that more of these coaches would open up those opportunities for minority players. If you can be productive on the field and you're not drafted in the NFL, Charlton, or you go to Canada or even one of these new leagues that are getting ready to start up, why aren't more opportunities presented to the minority athlete on these programs, Charlton, to come back, be a grad assistant, to be a position coach assistant, Charlton, to develop them so that they can potentially get one of those head coaching opportunities as they open up down the road, or even into the NFL, Charlton. We don't see many organizations in the NFL bringing players back saying, hey, I want you to be an assistant with this program. I want you to learn the nuances beyond just play.
Yeah, I think that's the case. And if we don't talk about it, it will never happen. That's why I love talking about it. Even down where you are, T. Martin, I remember he won University of Tennessee's last national championship back in the day, and he ended up being the offensive coordinator for the University of Southern California Trojans. They won 2 Pac-12 championships under his last 3 years there, Big C. 2 championships in his 3 years. And you just mentioned these guys making multiple $1 million. Only 3 have won their conference championship. Well, T. Martin, as an offensive coordinator, helped the Trojans win the Pac-12 2 out of 3 years. He doesn't have a job in the Pac-12 anymore. They got rid of him. I don't understand how he's not on the radar. When you've won a national championship as a coach, you've helped the team go out on the West Coast and win their conference championship 2 out of 3 years, but he found himself unemployed from those positions. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he was unemployed at USC. They brought him back into his alma mater at the University of Tennessee as a recruiting coach. Not as a position coach, as a recruiting coach, Charlton. So he did find his feet back in Knoxville,
Tennessee. Step down, though, not a step up.
It's a step down. When you think about that Tennessee program, Charlton, and how it's been down for the past decade, why wasn't he ever considered for the head coaching position, Charlton? They hired a head coach last season, an assistant that was down at Alabama, a defensive-minded coach, Charlton.
Yeah.
That, the team ended up in last place in the conference.
Yeah.
So why wasn't T. Martin the quarterback who succeeded Peyton Manning at Tennessee and went on to win a national championship? Why was he never considered for that same position as even an offensive coordinator or a head coach at the University of Tennessee?
Yeah, and when you think about that, Big C, even in college football, after 2 seasons at Oklahoma, head coach Lincoln Riley, there was talk that maybe he should be a Cowboy coach if he went to the NFL, but he got a $6 million salary. I mean, for every year that he stays after that, he'll get $700,000 bonus, $150,000 yearly increase up to the year 2023. Now, there's not much difference between Riley and what T. Martin was able to do. It's like that you think about that type of money for a player who, they got to the Final Four in football, but and I'm not going to knock Oklahoma's program. They've done a great job. But T. Martin was having success before Riley was on the scene. And for him to get demoted for a recruiting position as opposed to the head coach, they just keep the people who helped them win. They just tell them, thanks, boy, giving me the jersey, and we wish you luck going into another industry. I just think that's a shame. But give me your thoughts on Riley getting that kind of money up to the year 2023, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, he was a hot commodity when the NFL talk started. But, you think about the success that he's had at the University of Oklahoma with all the great coaches they've had in the past, from Bud Wilkerson to Barry Switzer.
Yeah.
The last guy before Lincoln Riley, I'm trying to think of his name, who just resigned 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But, when you think about the success of all those coaches that they've had, the Heisman Trophy winners that they've had in the past at the University of Oklahoma, then you look at what Lincoln Riley has done in 2 years.
Yeah.
He's been in the college playoffs 2 years, Charlton, being a head coach 2 years. He's had 2 Heisman Trophy winners, Charlton.
Yeah.
And if Lincoln Riley can have the success in this upcoming season, having Jalen Hurts transfer from Alabama and come to Oklahoma, if he ends up becoming a polished passer, Charlton, and a high draft pick in the NFL, all that money is warranted. They make it back to the playoffs because that's the going rate now in college football.
Yeah.
You think about Tom Herman, who finished second in that conference. There was no way that they could continue to pay Lincoln Riley less than what Tom Herman was making at Texas, Charles.
No,
because the tentacles were going to be out at the big schools saying, hey, if Oklahoma doesn't want to pay you, we will pay you. And the attraction of staying on the college level, Charlton, is that you don't have to deal with these grown men who make more than you.
Yeah.
That's the biggest attraction about being in college football.
Yeah.
Is that when you want to get rid of somebody, Charlton, you don't have to answer to anybody.
That's a good
When you want to bring somebody in, you don't have to worry about contract structure, Charlton.
Yeah.
You bring them in and you get rid of them at your own leisure. So you're king and the queen and the dictator when you're a college football head coach.
Makes a lot of sense. Mike Leach signs a 1-year extension, keeping him at Washington State, the Cougars, through 2023, which increases his contract to $4 million a season. Didn't make that top 10 list, or the top 9 that we talked about, but after having 4 consecutive bowl appearances and 11 wins in 2018, maybe even the Pac-12 Coach of the Year, because he's been consistent, and probably the toughest place to recruit players might be Washington State or Oregon State, but Leach, he's found a way to keep getting people up in the Blues and competing for Pac-12 championships in the smallest market in the Pac-12. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, so you reward the coach because the benefits that come from having winning programs, Charlton, and making bowl games is economics.
Yeah.
And when you think about where Washington State had been prior to the arrival of Mike Leach, Charlton, they weren't even on the radar in the Pac-12.
No.
And last year, Charlton, if not for just some bad luck, they would have won the Pac-12 title. A unfortunate field goal against USC and, Snow Bowl against Washington in the Apple Cup, Charlton. But, you think about the heights that program has reached. They had a Heisman Trophy candidate at quarterback. So, he's done a marvelous job up there in Pullman, re-elevating that program.
Yeah, I really think what he's done has been great, especially if you ever been up to that region of the country. It's a lot like other small towns down south or in the Midwest that have big programs. There's not a lot of distractions, so they have a lot of success getting people to come up there. Especially, he'll tell you that you can pay the price, you can pass the ball. Of course, you're not going to be in a great media market, but you still get to pass the ball a lot. Last thing about recruiting up there, do you see any way at all? And I know maybe they would call this tampering, but why is he not considered the kind of coach that could be a coach at USC that could get them on the national championship? I think he's had less to work with than you look at over at USC and even UCLA. I know they got Kelly back there at UCLA, and then we've seen USC kind of run the table. But I think that if he's the best coach on the West Coast, better than Peterson at Washington, why have the Trojans not made a run at him? He has a high-powered offense, and if you can recruit from the Pullman, Washington area, imagine him if he landed in L.A. with about 18 million people to choose from population-wise. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you think about trying to hire a coach on the college level, it's about personality fit. Does Mike Leach's personality fit with the athletic director or the boosters at USC?
Yeah.
Now, you got to remember, he was at Texas Tech prior to being dismissed down there and ended up at Washington.
Yeah.
Because he had ties to the athletic director at Washington State, Charlton. That's how he ended up at Washington State.
Yeah.
But he was on the open market. USC had the opportunity to hire him prior to hiring Todd Helton.
Yeah.
And even Steve Sarkisian. That's USC's unwillingness to be in that type of office, Charlton, to have that type of individual running their program. They want more of a personality, Charlton, that's going to go out and smooth with the media.
Yeah.
When you think about Mike Leach, he's abrasive. He's like Bill Parcells in the NFL.
Yeah.
Every program doesn't want that. They want more of a negotiator when they're talking to the media.
Yeah. Well, obviously, he's negotiating on the wins and loss record, but that may not always be enough. Big C, let's go to the women's basketball in college. You have number 1 Baylor, they're 17-1. UConn's 18-1. Louisville's number 3, they're 19-1. We talked about the Great Northwest. Oregon's ranked number 4, they're also 19-1. And number 5 in Notre Dame at 19-2. No, they don't compete with the men when it comes to getting TV attention, but there's a lot of strong programs in women's basketball that have better records at the top than the men's teams. Big C, your thoughts?
But Charlton, when you talk about the University of Baylor being the number 1 team in the country, Charlton, down there in Waco, Texas, they just came off a hard-fought battle to retain that number 1 seeding, beating Oklahoma State, Charlton, on the road, 66-58 game. And in that game, Charlton, they ran their road win streak to 31 consecutive games. You think about that on any level.
Yeah.
31 consecutive games in your opponent's house.
Yeah.
Is that, it's easy to win at home, and they always talk about how tough it is to win on the road. That's the reason why they're the number one ladies team in the country.
And they've earned it. Big C on the men's side of the basketball court. Top 5 remain unchanged. Number 1, Tennessee. We talked about T. Martin being down there winning their last football championship. They're in position to win, at least get into the Final Four if they're the number 1 seed out of the SEC. They're 18-1. Number 2, Duke 17-2. Number 3, Virginia 18-1, followed by number 4, Gonzaga 19-2, which is also up in the Great Northwest, near in the Spokane area, near the Washington State campus. Big C. Number 5, Michigan Wolverines. They're 19-1. Give me your thoughts on the state of basketball. I still think it was better back in the day when you had Coach the late Jerry Tarkanian with the UNLV running Rebels, and you always have Duke with Krzyzewski, Dean Smith at North Carolina. In those days, Bobby Knight, Indiana, those days are gone, but it's still good to see some of the main programs are still right and strong. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at the competitive nature of the men's side of college basketball, Charlton, and you talked about the top 5, and you look how close they are all in record, Charlton.
Yeah.
The landscape has been evened out in college basketball.
Yeah.
And so game in and game out, Charlton, is very competitive. When you talked about those top 5 teams, Charlton, 4 of those teams will end up with number 1 seeds throughout the country, Charlton, if they maintain where they are right now. So it's going to make for a fabulous March, Charlton, when we get down to the Final Four run.
Yeah, I like Nevada. I know we talk about out here on the West Coast. Looking at Gonzaga and Nevada making a nice run back at least to the Final 8 for both of those programs. We'll see. It all depends on how games are called. As we look at sports and we look at the factor going down to the Super Bowl, and we have a lot of cover on that, but I want to just touch real quick on NBA. I know there's a big game in Golden State tonight with the 76ers in town. It's not like Dr. J's coming out, but it sure has a good feeling potentially. It might be another blowout. We don't know yet, but give me your feeling when we look at offensive leaders. And everyone talks about Golden State. And when you look at the offensive leaders in the NBA, number 1, James Harden, averaging 36 points a game. Number 2, Anthony Davis, averaging 29 points a game. Steph Curry, averaging 29. Kawhi Leonard, averaging 28 points a game. And then Durant, 27. Imagine how great Golden State is when 2 of the top scorers or the top 5 scorers in the league are for the same team. But they have a guy in Boogie Cousins that may make their scoring totals come down, but their production go up, if that makes any sense. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when I'm just looking at that list you're talking about of the top scorers in the NBA, the top 2 scorers in the NBA, Charlton, their teams are not even leading their division.
Yeah.
They're not even in the top 3 in their division.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, the Pelicans are out of the playoff chase right now if it was to start today.
Yeah.
But when you talk about the balance on the Golden State Warriors, you're talking about Durant and you're talking about Curry.
Yeah.
But adding Cousins into the lineup, Charlton, actually their point production has gone up.
Yeah.
Since he's been in the lineup. He's not a guy who demands the ball, Charlton. But what he allows them to have is that inside presence that they've never really consistently had at the center position during these championship runs, Charlton.
Yeah.
They've run the center position by committee. Boogie Cousins is that dominant guy that when you drop the ball inside to him, Charlton, he's not shy about getting an assist.
No, he's
so
good.
You think about how much that opens up for those sharpshooters that they have on outside. With Thompson, Durant, and Curry.
Yeah.
And you think about since Cousin has been in the starting lineup, Charlton.
Yeah.
All of those players had at least scored at least 40 in one game, if not 2.
Yeah, that's an interesting Big C. And when we look at other teams in Northern California, the Sacramento Kings, 135-111 win over the Hawks. The Kings have won 6 straight home games for the first time since 2008. I still think they need to keep Willie Cauley-Stein. I know they talk about trading different players. He's the one big guy that can match DeMarcus Cousins, at least in Northern California, and maybe even on the West Coast. He can put on a little bit more muscle, but he has the frame. You don't want to get rid of guys like him. I know there's talk about should they move him because of money, but when you want to build something, De'Aaron Fox, Willie Cauley-Stein, and I like the fact that they have Buddy Hield, who might be the hardest working player on that team. That says a lot about the Kings' new arena for the last couple of years, a team that was on the verge of leaving Northern California. Now they've won 6 in a row. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is a young organization that's moving up and trending in the right direction. You think about how competitive that the West has been, Charlton, over the past 5 years out there. and Sacramento had been sort of a doormat in the West, but now Charlton, they've drafted well. They've kept these young players together. Everyone thought that the franchise would fall through the ground when they got rid of Boogie Cousins a year ago, Charlton, and sent him off to the Pelicans.
Yeah.
But maybe it was what they needed as an organization, Charlton, to have more guys that were on the same equal plane playing together, and it's been productive for them, getting them into the middle of the pack in the West.
Well, when you're in the West, you got to look at the Denver Nuggets. Djokovic had finished 20 points, 13 rebounds, 10 assists, 8th triple-double of the season, and a 105-99 win over the Pelicans last night. And then you look at Russell. His Westbrook only has more triple-doubles than anybody, but this guy is relatively unknown because it's in the great Midwest, but you still think about West Coast players when you look at guys that are scoring and averaging in high numbers. But Denver, they're a good team, but they're probably going to get knocked out. I don't see them reaching the finals of the West. They'll probably get past the first round. I just don't see them getting into the Western Conference Finals because they just don't have the history. I know they're young and talented, but something tells me that they'll fade down the stretch, especially as Golden State and Houston get better. And then OKC looks very dominant. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you talk about Jokic out there in Denver, Charlton. They're the second-best team in the Western Conference, and at one time, they held the first place in the Western Conference. Everybody in the NBA knows who Jokic is. He may not be a household name amongst NBA fans or people who just watch television, Charlton, but, his competitors know who he is because night in and night out, and that statistic you spoke about, only Russell Westbrook has had more triple-doubles this season than the big man that's playing in Denver, Charlton.
Yep.
And probably the best outlet passer in the NBA, Charlton, playing the center position since the great Wes Unseld with the Washington Bullets back in the 70s.
Going back into the 70s, Big C, without Victor Oladipo, Indiana Pacers, they had the lowest point output of the season, 107-89 loss to the Washington Wizards, who were led by Bradley Beal, scored 25 points. The 40th time this season scored at least 20. I know we talk about Westbrook and his assist. He's always in the zone, as he says. And we also talk about Harden. Harden can score 35, 40 points every night, it seems. But then you have a guy like Beal. He's getting that solid 20 points a game. And I'm really impressed, especially when they're not a favorite to win the East of your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, when you talk about Bradley Beal and the Washington Wizards, everyone had talked about John Wall, how John Wall is the franchise player with this team, Charlton.
Exactly.
But if you go back 2 years ago, this team was, ascending upwards when John Wall was on the injury list. He came back for the playoffs, Charlton.
Yeah.
They made it through one series and was eliminated in the next, but they've always been a better team when Bradley Beal is the go-to guy with the Washington Wizards, Charlton. He's an unknown superstar because he has a high-priced player on his roster.
Yeah. I tell you what, it doesn't matter who you are. It's a team game. Really looking forward to seeing Golden State and Philly playing tonight. I want to say sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. For every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Benemark. They've been around for 50 years. They work with Big C Sports, whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, your high school team, or your mom and pop soccer league. When you reach out to them, let them know that Big C sent you. As we look down south, Atlanta's a gorgeous city. They've been showing clips of it all over the country, of course. We really hope that people can stay warm up in the Midwest, Chicago, Minneapolis. Just a lot of really frigid weather. Where I think Chicago and the Windy City, with the wind chill, I think they were saying minus 50 in some parts of that city. And then other parts of the north, Midwest region, people are having a tough time just staying warm and staying safe. So our thoughts are with you. But down in Atlanta, I want to get your thoughts. There are four factors, running backs in Super Bowl coming up who will have the largest impact. I want to get your thoughts. Everyone thinks it might be Gurley. I think it might be Anderson still, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I look at what Sonny Michel does and James White for the New England Patriots. You think about how integral these guys have been. James White, this is his third consecutive Super Bowl in the backfield for the Patriots.
Yeah.
He's a forgotten entity because Sonny Michel came in and had such a captivating rookie season. Sonny Michel is a much better back than what people give him credit for, Charlton. He can catch the ball coming out of the backfield. We know that he can run between the tackles. But even more so, he can get out on the edge, Charlton.
Yeah.
You think about James White. He scored the game-winning touchdown 2 years ago against Atlanta in the Super Bowl down in Houston.
Yeah.
But he's that great receiver on the swing route coming out of the backfield. That's where the Rams were able to hold the Saints in check, Charlton. They were able to knock those backs off of their route, trying to get out into the backfield. You got to think that New England really studied those game tapes, Charlton, about what the Rams did to those running backs. Todd Gurley has not been healthy for a month, and so everybody's still skeptical. What type of performance will Todd Gurley have, Charlton, coming back to his home state, playing in the Super Bowl? C.J. Anderson, not many people realize C.J. Anderson was at Cal prior to Jared Goff.
Yeah.
He was the star of the Cal Berkeley, Charlton. Then all of a sudden, he went into the NFL, had a decent career. Then he was put on the waiver wire by a couple teams, especially your buddy out there in Oakland who had so many teams to the playoffs.
Just win, baby.
But C.J. Anderson, Charlton, because of the type of the defense that the Patriots will run from time to time, can have a lot of success on the ground.
Yeah.
But I still like what James White can do in this game, Charlton, for the Patriots.
Well, speaking of that, do the Patriots have an advantage understanding former teammates that are now with the Rams and wide receiver Brandon Cooks and defensive back Aqib Talib? Do they have that advantage? Or players are adaptable? When you have the benefit of saying, well, we know what that person's tendencies are because he played with our organization, well, they also might be using that as a way to fool you and trick you. It also, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you know what type of coverage guy that Talib is. I mean, he spent a couple Super Bowls with the Patriots.
Yeah.
So they're very well aware of how he is on the field, Charlton, and you want to create that mismatch with him with certain players.
Yeah.
Brandon Cooks, the Patriots were willing to let him go as they had many, speedy receivers, Charlton. You think about that organization, they're going to roll and take away, Charlton, a receiver in the game.
Yeah.
That's what they're going to do. Is it Robert Woods or is it Brandon Cooks that the Patriots choose to take away in this game? Khalid Talib, you always want to create that mismatch with him, Charlton. And when you think about the type of receivers that the Patriots use, they don't use that outside burner, Charlton, in their lineup. They're more about going to their slot receivers. So does that take the lead out of the game, Charlton? You split the tight end out wide, force the lead to cover.
Yeah.
You got all those underneath routes, Charlton, that you can run.
Well, that's interesting, talking about coaches and strategies. And people want to even equate McVay with Belichick. You can't even do that. Only other X's and O's, but you can't equate them with success. With all the media reveling about the success of Sean McVay, the Rams head coach, and we wish him well, of course we do. Especially down in New Orleans, they're saying, what's the big deal? But he never made the playoffs as an offensive coordinator with the Washington Redskins 2014 to 2016. All of a sudden, he's a guru, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he had your cousin that he was coaching down there in Minnesota.
That explains it.
He was a quarterback with the Redskins. So, as everyone talks about the genius of Sean McVay, he was there with Jay Gruden in Washington, Charlton. And that combination of coaches could not make the playoffs.
Wow.
So when people talk about him being in Los Angeles, being a quarterback whisperer, was it the talent of the Rams, Charlton, that made this team a success? Or was it the head coach? I think that's a point that the media is missing and they really don't discuss.
Yeah.
Is that they just tell you the genius of having this young coach. This young coach spent 3 years with your cousin in Minnesota, and they didn't make the playoffs.
He's not my cousin.
Okay? He comes to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Look at the talent that was in place when he got to Los Angeles, Charlton.
Yeah.
What did Sean McVay add to the Rams lineup?
Yeah.
He really didn't, Charlton. That offense was intact when he got there. That offensive line was there. The running back was there, Charlton. He added maybe 2 receivers. He added a tight end and a receiver.
Yeah.
That was it. Everybody else basically was in place when he arrived in Los Angeles. So when they talk about a quarterback genius, Charlton, Jared Goff just needed to get in the lineup.
Yeah.
If you recall, as a rookie, Case Keenum was a starting quarterback when Jared Goff was a rookie.
Yeah.
Sean Mannion was also a starting quarterback. So they had 3 quarterbacks that they utilized under Jeff Fisher.
Yeah.
So, when they say that the guy was a genius, the quarterback just needed to get in the lineup. There was a reason he was the number 1 draft pick overall.
Yeah.
So until he proves that he can win a couple championships, Charlton, I still say it's the talent of the Los Angeles Rams, not the head coach.
I would say that, Big C. When we think about the head coaches, and I know we talk about the Rooney Rule, and the NFL has their own issues coming up, and still, if we as African American men, if we act like we're ignorant to what's really going on. Well, you really got to say to yourself, as an African-American player, you can't really expect to ever have a job coaching in an NFL team. You may get lucky as an assistant, but you're going to be marginalized. The NFL owners are batting 1,000 right now, hiring white head coaches. So far, 7 of the 7 openings have been white males who only make up less than, I would say, 35% of the NFL. It's about a 65, maybe I say 30%. I say the NFL is about 70% African American. But when it comes to coaching, white males are almost 95%. That doesn't make any sense. We still have the Dolphins up in the air. And that spot, if it goes to African American, they're waiting a long time. I know the Patriots still got things to do. But I just want to get your thoughts on the sadness state of the NFL that we make that statement going into Black History Month, which is the month that the Super Bowl will be played. And for Black History Month, we may have only enough African American coaches to count on half a hand. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's ironic that you had 7 hirings or 8 firings and 7 quick hirings of white coaches.
Yeah.
No consideration really given to African American coaches, Charlton. There's 2 prominent, assistant coaches, Charlton, that may get interviews. Eric Bieniemy and the linebacker defensive coordinator coach for the Patriots. Those are the 2 top African American candidates.
Yeah.
So that's the Miami Dolphins job, Charlton. So if anybody's going to get a job, it's going to be between those 2 down at the Dolphins. But just to say that you can hire 7 white coaches and no black coach gets consideration. But it goes back to the point we made earlier in the program when we talked about bringing in grad assistants, Charlton, making them assistant and position coaches, making them coordinators, even on the college level, even as professionals, bringing them in as assistant coaches, Charlton, on the professional level.
Yeah.
They're not given the opportunity. That's the number one thing, is that you're bringing in guys, Charlton, that look like you.
Yeah.
It's hard to bring in an intelligent guy to say, well, he may be up for my position. That's the number one thing. I think one of the greatest defensive minds in the NFL, Charlton, in the last 15 years was Ed Reed, safety with the Baltimore Ravens.
Amazing.
I mean, he was a coach on the field. He was the most intelligent defensive player, Charlton, I've seen in many, many years.
Yeah.
And he's never been considered as an assistant coach, even as far as a head coach. I mean, people talk about Tony Romo because he can sit up in a broadcast booth after the coach can no longer communicate with the quarterback and recognize the play at that point.
Yeah.
He couldn't do it as well as a player when he was on the field. That's the difference.
That's a very good
point. But Ed Reed, Charlton, won 2 Super Bowls, okay?
Yeah.
He won 2 Super Bowls, so he knew what he was doing. Tony Romo won 1 playoff game.
Are you saying that Ed Reed won more Super Bowls than Romo even played in, Big C? Is that what you're saying?
More than playoff games that Tony Romo won, okay?
Well, that means...
when you talk about the intelligence, Ed Reed is not mentioned as far as intelligence of minds that played the great game in the NFL, Charlton.
Yeah.
But Tony Romo is getting all the praise in the world because he's called a few plays during games from the broadcast booth that he couldn't recognize, Charlton, when he was a player on the field.
That's a very good point. And obviously, I know he steps on Jim Nantz quite a bit. And people are saying, well, Tony Romo used to be the head coach. At some point in time, you're like the guy in the movie theater. Yeah, you talk to the offensive coordinator. You know what they're going to run. And then you get on TV. It's the guy in the movie that's telling you he's seen the movie 10 times already. You're there for the first time with your date or significant other. And this guy's reading out what you're going to see. Well, it doesn't mean that you're any better than somebody who hasn't seen it yet. You've just been told what's happening. I think Jim Nantz might be getting tired of that too, calling Jerry Jones. Don't you have an opening, Jerry Jones? The commissioner being in Atlanta at his press conference yesterday, the home of the civil rights movement, should have had a better answer, I think, addressing the lack of black head coaches in the NFL, as well as Colin Kaepernick. And as African-American men, if we behave like the white media or mainstream, well, now's not the time to talk about it. Well, we don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. Can't you just be happy? Look at how many people have jobs playing the game. Why would you need a job after you've made several, $1 million, Big C? I think even Goodell, he may have a good heart or a bad. We don't know. All I know is what people do. And they just say we don't need the Rooney Rule because people don't follow it anyway, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you think about the Rooney Rule, it was put in place and they thought it would work, Charlton. But they saw that it wasn't something that they wanted to abide by. What rules have NFL teams ever abided by, Charlton? When we see the egregious acts during and after the season
Yeah.
that teams commit. They don't mind paying fines, Charlton. It's no big deal to an NFL owner. You know, we talked about the fine that Anthony Davis got yesterday from the league. There was 0.2% of his salary. You know, 0.2%.
Yeah.
That meant nothing to Anthony Davis, $50,000. Think about what $200,000 means to an owner, Charlton. If $50,000 means nothing to a player, here's an owner who employs 100 players being told he has to pay $200,000.
Yeah.
He can care less about that, Charlton. He's going to deal with that Ugaric look the way he is.
Yeah.
You know, not only did he not address the African-American, you know, head coaching issue, Charlton, he should have addressed the Colin Kaepernick issue.
Yeah.
You know, you think about Colin Kaepernick, Charlton, as a quarterback in the NFL. Here's a guy who made 58 starts as a quarterback in the NFL. He has the fourth best touchdown to interception ratio during that time, Charlton, in NFL history of quarterbacks. And he completed 60% of his passes. And people say that he can't play. Look around the statistics last season, Charlton, of quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah.
How many of them completed 60% of their passes? Who had a touchdown interception ratio, Charlton, that Colin Kaepernick had? How many of those guys have made it to a Super Bowl? So by the NFL avoiding that issue in the land of civil rights, Charlton, of African-American coaches, and why you've ostracized a black coach, a black quarterback from the league, Charlton, I think the commissioner has missed many points being in Atlanta. You know, skirting around the New Orleans issue, trying to be political about it, Charlton, not giving a solid explanation. I'll just say you effed up the call, period. That's all you ever say. Take the bullet. Be honest. You screwed it up. New Orleans got hosed. Let's move on. The Colin Kaepernick issue. You should have addressed that. You're in Atlanta, home of the civil rights. He's fighting for social injustice, Charlton. What the civil rights was all about. And then the oppression of black coaches in the NFL, Charlton. Why they're not hired. Why you don't do more to ensure the possibility of an African American getting a head coaching job.
Well, I wanna ask you, even in what we do as the #1 sports show in the universe, I'll tell you why. There's a lot of men of color, and I know people say, well, you can't blame the black guy. He's looking to keep his job. But if you have a job and you're on TV, why is Big C Sports the only program that will ask the commissioner to address why you ignore hiring men of color, and they dominate the league? About 70% of your athletes are men of color. That's a blatant thing we can ask. The NFL hiring stance looks almost like the White House. We know Donald Trump has anathema for black people. We know that based on his history of people that he's brought into his cabinet. Only Ben Carson, head of housing and urban. I think he's a neurosurgeon, so maybe he used the same hands to repair hearts that he did to build houses. Whatever he's there for, I still don't understand it. But everybody has opportunity. But there are no, again, if we wait for white men to say, well, let the white guy say it first, it's never going to happen. There has to be, we can't be the only program that causes attention to it. And I'll say this before I hand it over to you, Big C. Nothing in this country happened because people wanted it to happen without some type of pushback or struggle. We have to blow some type of a whistle to bring attention to it. Whether it's civil rights, whether it's ending the women's suffrage, whether the right to vote, the right to fair housing. Nothing happened without people making noise about it. But if we can't get some of our own black brethren that sit next to white guys on the program, and they'll outnumber the white host, but they'll use the black talent to come in and fill in airtime. They won't even talk about something that could benefit them, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, is called a production meeting prior to the broadcast is what they sit down in. This is what we're going to cover. This is what we're not going to cover. That is the reason why the black broadcasters on these sports programs, Charlton, don't talk about these issues, because it's not a part of the production meeting. It's not what's on the teleprompter. And they're not going to go off script. Regardless of what they may feel emotionally and personally, Charlton, is that they're governed by what they can say on the air. And that air is that mic. They got to kill switch it anytime they want, that they can kill it. Most of these programs, Charlton, have a 7 to 15 second delay. You go off script, they can kill that at any point that they want. But these guys want to come back and do the show the next day, Charlton. They look at the sacrificial part of one or two individuals, Charlton, and said that they don't want it to be them.
Yeah.
When you sit around, and I've seen so many former broadcasters, Charlton, this week here in Atlanta, guys that you've seen on the Mothership, guys that you've seen on Fox, on all the broadcast networks, Charlton. They're all here at the Super Bowl. Half of the living members of the Hall of Fame, Charlton, are here at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
There's so many Super Bowl rings walking around Atlanta, Charlton. You need a Brinks truck to protect everybody.
Yeah,
but the guys that are walking around, that are speaking, Charlton, that are advocating about the things that we talk about, they're not on the air.
Yeah.
It's just like you got more former NFL players in Atlanta, Charlton, pushing hemp and marijuana businesses than you can speak of.
Wow.
But the NFL doesn't want that to be part of their league. But they're telling you the medicinal that hemp will help you out, that you can get off the pharmaceutical drugs and stop destroying your body chemically. The NFL doesn't want people to know that, Charlton, because they're in big business with the pharmaceutical companies.
Oh, yeah.
So they will not run these hemp commercials during the Super Bowl. But I guarantee you, Charlton, during the Super Bowl, there will be at least a dozen alcohol beverage commercials run.
Oh, yeah.
At least 6 to 8 male enhancement commercial run, Charlton. These are all chemicals that are produced by corporate America. Hemp is a natural chemical from the Mother Earth, Charlton. The NFL doesn't want you to know about that, just like the broadcast networks don't want the black former players, Charlton, to talk about the lack of black participation in management in the NFL.
And that's why, like Obi-Wan Kenobi, God told Big C Sports, you're our last hope. We'll keep talking about it, Big C. The NFL hired in 2018. We got John Gruden, Mike Vrabel with the Tennessee, Gruden with the Raiders, Frank Wright, Indianapolis, Matt Patricia with Detroit. I still don't understand that, replacing Caldwell, who was 9-7. You have Steve Wilkes, Arizona, who's gone, Matt Nagy, Chicago, and Pat Shermer with the Giants. And when we talk about the Rooney Rule and all the other rules, I just want to get your thoughts again. That state of the NFL, I know there's a silent treatment for a lot of people that like us that want to just say Google what we say, don't even trust what we say, let you can Google it. Just give me your thoughts on the state of the NFL and their coaches being hired in the last year, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, of those coaches that you just spoke about being hired last year, 8 coaches. Only one African-American out of that bunch was hired, Charlton. One African-American. This year, 8 coaches fired. 7 white coaches been hired, Charlton. So the trend is to about eliminating African-American head coaches, Charlton, by one means or another.
Yeah.
And when you name those coaches off, Charlton, only 2 of them made the playoffs.
Yeah.
Think about that. Only 2 of those coaches made the playoffs. The black coach didn't make the playoffs, Charlton. He got fired. Pat Shermer kept his job. He wins 5 games. John Gruden wins 4 games. He keeps his job.
Yeah.
So when you look at the disparity, Charlton, as far as coaches in the NFL, you talked about Matt Patricia in Detroit. He was 7-9 as a head coach.
Yeah.
Make that 6-10 as a head coach. Jim Caldwell was 9-7 the previous year, lost his job, African-American, Charlton.
For winning.
So you're allowed to have lack of success as a white coach in the NFL, but if you're a black coach and you perform at the level of a white coach, you will get fired.
Yeah, I think we have to be so honest about that. Just the truth. The truth will set you free. I want to just get your thoughts in closing out, Big C. What makes an athlete great in team sports? We talk about what makes a coach great, what makes an ownership great, a coach great. What makes an athlete great in team sports, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, what makes an athlete great in team sports? I mean, go back to the movie Harlem Nights. There was a fighting scene in that movie. Ernie Hudson played the world champ. And at the time, when he walked into the ring, Charlton, he told his white opponent, I don't want you to take this butt whipping person. He used some other words. But he told him, I don't want you to take this butt whipping person.
I think he said asbestos.
That's what the great athletes say, Charlton, to their opponent.
Yeah.
Because this happens to everybody. I don't want you to take it personally. But I'm here to destroy and dominate you.
Yeah.
That's what makes great athletes great, Charlton, is that they take no prisoners. If you remember the movie, Remember the Titans, Coach Herman Boone.
Yeah.
And his assistant coach said in the movie, take no prisoners. That's the mentality of a great athlete, Charlton. You might be best friends with somebody off the court.
Yeah.
But when you get on the court, you don't know them. And I looked at every opponent I ever played with, or against, from high school through college and professional ball, Charlton. I despised the color of the jersey that they had on.
Yeah.
I didn't despise the person. I despised the jersey that they had on.
Yeah.
You just happen to be wearing it, so you were going to have a rough day.
That's always,
for 60 minutes, you were going to have a rough day.
Yeah.
And that's what great athletes do, Charlton. They take it personal.
Yeah.
They want you to try to optimize whatever you have. But they're going to show you that your best is just not good enough.
Yeah.
Because they worked harder to achieve the optimum more than you did.
Big C. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C. What are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, what I'm looking forward to now, we're about 71 hours away from Super Bowl 53 in Atlanta. I'm looking for an exciting and outstanding performance, Charlton, between two outstanding teams. And history will be made by one of them.
Yep, that's always true. Speaking of history, we want everyone to stay warm as much as possible. There's something that the great Oprah Winfrey had in one of her last magazines. It said, make time for peace. We love peace. Make time for change. We love change. It also said, make yourself enjoy life. Make sure that your voice is heard. We will always try to be that voice every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide. Follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, of the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C, in them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911. Because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.